After my husband gave his mother a key to our home and helped her destroy my life, I exposed their lies with the police at my doorstep. When I opened my front door, I didn't notice the strewn documents or the toppled furniture. It was the quietness, that oppressive strange hush that envelopes you like a veil of death and whispers that something is gravely wrong. I'm standing in my cluttered living room and realize I should have trusted my family more. As I called Ryan's phone, my fingers were shaking and voicemail's click was heard after 1 or 2 rings. My beloved husband was probably at his mother's house acting like he had no idea why his wife had called Ryan. Someone broke into the house, the safe was open, and I called Ryan back immediately. It buzzed on my phone, not Ryan. Evan at work. He inquired, "How's the drive back?" "Someone broke into my house," I said, shaking my voice. "The safe." They knew the combination. "Jesus, are you okay? Do you need me to come over?" I tossed. "Helen's fingerprints are all over this mess. She's been trying to get those letters for months." "Your mother-in-law, why would she?" I arrived at the kitchen where all the cabinets were empty and said because she can't stand that Ryan married someone who won't bow to her every whim. She thinks those letters prove my grandmother's family wronged hers decades ago, some ancient real estate dispute she won't let die. When Evan said call the police and tell them. Steal family documents that my sister-in-law probably helped because she's bitter about her divorce and wants to hurt someone else's marriage. Though it sounded empty, I chuckled. They're too smart for that. They'll say Ryan gave them permission. It'll be my word against the Miller family. The basement door was ajar. I hadn't looked down there. I have to go, Evan. I need to see what else they took. Audrey, wait. After hanging up I went down the stairs. Flicked on, but I saw a tiny piece of paper stuck behind a toppled box. It was a 3-day-old receipt for a duplicate key from the hardware store. My phone buzzed. Ryan again, and before I could respond, he asked where I was. At Mom's. Audrey said, she just wanted to look for some old family photos while you were away. Were all I had left of my grandmother, Ryan, the only things that were truly mine. We can talk about this when I get home, but the word was piercing enough to pierce. I'm coming over there right now, and Ryan, tell your mother to prepare for war. After hanging up, I stood in my basement surrounded by the ruins of faith. Helen's carefully chosen family images on her walls depicted Ryan and Chloe's early years, but there were no photos of my wedding day. Helen poured tea in her living room, while my house was in ruins across town. "Honey, delicious poison, I have no idea what you're talking about," she said. "Ryan gave me permission to look for old family albums while you were away." Nothing more. With her arms folded and her wedding ring noticeably missing, Chloe sat next to her mother. "You're being hysterical, Audrey." As usual, I put the hardware store receipt on the coffee table. "Funny how you needed a new key made 3 days ago." Planning ahead, eyes flitting between his mother and. "We're calm," I said as I watched Helen's immaculately manicured fingers encircle her teacup. "Just like we were calm last Christmas when you went through my phone while I was sleeping, or last month when you showed up unannounced at my office to check on me when Helen said I worry about my son." I laughed until my throat ached from the broken glass. "Or your mother was right about you from the start." Chloe's eyes. Helen's mask broke. "That property should have been ours. Your grandmother knew exactly what she was doing when she." Ryan warned, but it was too late. Slowly the pieces clicked into place as I stood up. "So you admit you took them?" Helen's face suddenly became smoother. "I admitted nothing, and you have no proof." With my hand hovery. "But I will." "Ryan, are you coming home or staying here?" He glanced at his mother, then at me, constantly conflicted, always taking the easy route. "I think maybe we all need space to cool off." I glanced back at Helen before making my way to the door, saying, "Wrong answer." "You know what's funny? Those letters you stole, they're not even the originals, just copies I kept as decoys. Grandmother taught me well, always keep what matters most where manipulative people can't." "Heard you're lying." I asked him. "I guess you'll have to wonder about that along with what else I might have hidden away." I looked into Ryan's eyes. "Don't bother coming home tonight," or ever. He started to get up, but Chloe grabbed his arm and said, "Audrey, wait." She urged, "Let her go. She's just trying to manipulate you." Like always, I left Helen's well-organized world behind and made my way to my car. I held the steering wheel with trembling hands. Been kept in a safety deposit box ever since I married Ryan, and seen Helen's hunger when Grandma's letters were brought up during the wedding. It buzzed on my phone. "Evan again." He asked how bad was it. "They fell for the ruse." Helen essentially admitted it. "I started the engine, but I have another task for you. Remember that security system you installed at your lake house, the one with the hidden cameras?" Backed away, I saw Helen's house shrink in my rearview mirror. "And Evan, thank you for being the only person in my life who always listens." "But Audrey, just be careful. People like that, they're most dangerous when they're cornered." With plans already racing through my head, I hung up the phone. Helen thought she knew everything about me. She realized she had overlooked one important fact, though I had observed her influence ever since. The coffee shop across from Helen's favorite hairdresser gave me the best view. After 2 hours of watching, Evan moved into the seat across from me and pushed a new cup in my direction. He said, "The cameras are set up, motion sensors, night vision, everything feeding directly to your phone." "But are you sure about this?" I gestured to the salon window where Helen and Chloe were. Said, "Listen." During our confrontation, the bug I put in Helen's handbag allowed me to hear their voice. Helen was saying, "We need those original letters. That safety deposit box has to be at her bank downtown." "Ryan says she's been going through their financial records," said Chloe, "probably planning to divorce him and take everything." She yelled over my dead body. "Helen, I didn't spend 30 years building this family's reputation to have her destroy it. We're going back." We can use against her. I put an end to the recording. Still think I'm paranoid. Evan's expression stiffened. We should take this to the police and tell them I put my hands around the steaming cup and said, and tell them my mother-in-law is planning to rob me. They'll say it's a family matter. Besides, I want more than just stopping them. I want them to face consequences for once in their privileged lives. It buzzed on my phone. Ryan, I'm calling. Plotting with them to find the originals, or maybe he's worried about you. My coffee tasted bad, so I said he should have worried before giving them a key to our house before choosing them over me again. Ryan texted, come home please, we must speak. Home, I whispered, like that means anything anymore. Evan bent over. Audrey, I know you're hurt, but the salon entrance chimed. Helen and Chloe came out with shiny new manicures. Helen stopped and I said time to go and suddenly stood up. They'll be at my house tomorrow at 10 o'clock according to their usual schedule. That's when we'll catch them. Evan's eyebrows went up. I thought you wanted to handle this yourself. I do. I collected my belongings, my hands trembling a little. I can't face them alone anymore. I need someone in. I told Evan this isn't about retaliation, it's about justice and maybe saving Ryan from them, even if he doesn't want to be saved again. As I watched Helen's car drive away, I thought back to our wedding reception when she cornered me in the restroom and revealed her true nature. You'll never be good enough for this family, she said. Found something interesting in your grandmother's old law firm records. Tomorrow noon, Riverside Park. Come alone, or Ryan learns everything about the Anderson case. Evan saw my face. What's wrong? With my thoughts racing, I closed the message. My grandmother's greatest regret, the secret she carried to her grave, and the true cause of Helen's animosity toward our family was the Anderson case. Nothing. I pretended to smile. Just work stuff I should go prepare for tomorrow. But at lunchtime, Riverside Park appeared different, somehow cooler, holding a manila envelope containing ammunition for whatever game Helen was playing. I sat on a bench. The case files of Anderson decades ago. My grandma had sealed them away in my hands. Now they were a weapon. A shadow landed on my lap. Not Helen. Ryan. My mother told me everything, he claimed. The Anderson case, about what your grandmother did to our family. A heavier envelope. Did she tell you how your grandfather tried to blackmail mine and threatened to destroy their law firm unless they gave him that property? That's not. He paused, face rubbing. She said you try to twist things like she did you. I looked over at him. Did you give her the safe combination? Ryan. His silence was sufficient. I went the day after our wedding when she I'm stealing from you. I was protecting our family. I laughed, but my voice didn't sound like it. There is no our family. There's only ever been yours. It buzzed on my phone. Regarding the cameras he had set, Evan was messaging. Everything was prepared for the trap of tomorrow. All of a sudden, though it felt empty. Check using you. I whispered. She always has, and you let her because it's easier than standing. Envelope on his lap and stood up. Here, the precious Anderson case files, proof that your grandfather committed fraud, not mine, proof that your mother's been lying all these years. He stared intently at the envelope. How did you get them? From my grandmother's old partner. Turns out he's been waiting years for someone to finally expose the truth. I took a step back. But you know what? Keep them, burn them, give them to Helen. I don't care anymore. Audrey, wait. I filed. Face turned white. You what? Check your email. The paper should arrive today. Now my hands were steady. I'm done being the villain in Helen's story. Done watching you choose them over me. Done pretending we have a marriage worth saving. He approached me as he rose up and said, we can fix this. I'll talk to mother. That's exactly the problem, I said, stepping back from his contact. Your first instinct is still to run to her. It always will be. Once more my phone buzz. Type the deal has changed. Inquire about the files with Ryan. You can't just throw away 3 years of marriage, Ryan said. I started to go but stopped when I heard you already did that when you gave them the key to our house. The saddest part is I thought I could save you from them, but you don't want to be saved. Audrey, goodbye. Ryan. I passed the seat where we used to have Sunday lunches and the place where he proposed as I strolled through the quiet. Only Evans's message was received. The cameras are in real time. Do you still intend to carry out tomorrow's plan at the park exit? I paused and took one final glance back. Ryan appeared disoriented as he stood where I had left him, holding the package tightly. My determination faltered for a second, then I recalled the broken safe, broken house, and 3 years of gaslighting and deception. Yes, I replied to the text, but plans changed. I no longer. Ryan, who was always running back to his mother, took out his phone and probably called Helen. I typed, I want to destroy them all, because sometimes destroying everything and starting over is the only way to save yourself. I was sitting in my car across the street when the security camera feed flashed on my laptop screen. Intricate setup from the passenger seat. Evan said, you don't have to watch this, we can just let the cameras record. My coffee cup made my fingers whiten. I need to see it, need to know exactly how they do it. Helen's Mercedes smoothly came to a stop in front of my house on time. Chloe followed her out, as always immaculately styled. Then a third door opened and Ryan appeared in my hands. The coffee cup crumbled. He is assisting them. They went to the main. Evan, Audrey, maybe we should wait. As a fourth figure stepped out of Helen's car, I took hold of his arm. Who is that with a briefcase in hand? The man in the pricey suit walked with authority. Somehow he looked familiar. That's James Morton, Evan announced, Helen's lawyer. I've seen him at charity events. The group vanished within my home. I flipped between camera angles, seeing them navigate unsettling places. Those Anderson files have to be here somewhere. Mother added her. She said she gave them to me. Ryan made a feeble protest. Copies, obviously. Helen yelled, you think your wife would give up her only leverage? Search everything. Once more I saw them tearing up my house. But this time I noticed Ryan was opening drawers with trembling hands. As Chloe knocked books from the shelves, I noticed her Believed no one was looking. Revealing her true desperation, Morton said, "Behind the safe without warning. Did you check behind it?" I gasped. The safe on the wall had been a ruse. There was nothing back there, but everyone was aware of it too soon. Ryan answered, "No, there's nothing back there." Helen squinted her eyes. "Move it, mother, move it." My fingers hovered above 911 as I reached for my phone. The prior owner had installed a secret compartment behind. Considerably more devastating than the Anderson case, compiled with care over 3 years of observation and anticipation. Ryan took a step forward, then halted. "No," he replied. Helen turned against him, asking, "What did you say?" I said, "No," he said more firmly. "This ends now. We're leaving." Helen's composure broke when she asked, "After everything I've done for you, that woman has poisoned you against your own family." Ryan remarked, "That woman is my wife." "Not anymore, Morton." I walked into the doorway with my phone filming everything and asked to prevent us from breaking and entering. Destruction of property conspiracy. With the exception of Helen, they all froze like guilty kids. She flashed her sly smile. "Perfect timing, dear. We were just discussing the Anderson case and other family matters." I walked deeper into the room with Evan behind me and said, "I can see that, but you made one mistake, Helen. You got sloppy." "Desperate," she responded. I looked into Ryan's astonished eyes and said, "They're already with a district attorney along with proof that your mother embezzled millions from her own charity foundation. That's why she's so desperate to find evidence against my family to protect herself." Chaos ensued in the R. Retaliation isn't always about ruining someone. Sometimes letting them ruin themselves is the solution, and sometimes speaking the truth is enough to bring about justice. As she talked to the police, her lawyer and Chloe screamed, but I watched Helen sit primly on the couch with tears running down her flawlessly applied face. "Family, I was just trying to protect my son. We have evidence of her harassment," Morton said with ease. "Her obsession with destroying her mother-in-law's reputation. The break-in was merely an attempt to recover documents from the family. The recording of their entrance was no longer useful, and my phone felt heavy in my pocket." Like Helen always did, they had gone ahead of me and completely changed the situation. "That isn't true," Ryan exclaimed abruptly. Every weeping stopped immediately. "Ryan, dear, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly." He moved away from her and in my direction, but I retreated too late, too little. "The embezzlement accusations, they're true, aren't they?" asked Ryan. "That's why you've been so desperate to destroy Audrey's family's reputation, to cover your tracks." "Everything I did was for this family," Helen said. Her mask fell off and she pointed a finger at me and threatened to destroy. Officers looked at each other. He heard someone talking into his radio. "Mrs. Helen Miller, we're going to need you to come down to the station. This is ridiculous. I'm the victim here," she said to Morton, her attorney. "Do something." Morton was already moving toward the entrance. "I think our professional relationship has concluded, Helen, given the circumstances." After that, everything occurred pretty fast as they led her away. Helen wailed and Chloe followed compel. "I didn't know about the charity money, about any of it, I swear," I said. "But you knew about the break-ins, the harassment, the lies," and my voice broke. "You chose them every single time. You chose them. I can fix this." I pointed at our demolished house and said, "Fix what? My grandmother's letters are still gone." "Armar, I loved you," he shouted frantically. "Isn't that worth something?" I remembered every touch, every promise, and every time I felt like we were actually creating something as I gazed at his hand on my arm. Then I recalled the last time I saw him pick his mother's falsehoods above my reality, helping them break into our house. I whispered, "Love without tea." Standing in the ruins of our life together. As I withdrew, the detective waited while filling out more paperwork and asking more questions. I spent hours describing how I had discovered proof of Helen's embezzlement, recorded her harassment, and seen my marriage gradually deteriorate due to deceit and manipulation. Later, when I was alone in my car, I took out my grandmother's final letter. Not the one Helen had taken, but the authentic one. I turned off the phone and started the engine, and he was standing in the doorway of what had been our house, looking lost. I could see him in the rearview mirror. My heart grieved for a moment, but as I drove away, I realized I had nearly turned to Helen in my attempt to destroy her manipulative, control-obsessed, and prepa. Correct. Taking down Helen wasn't the true victory, it was in releasing myself. At last the corridor of the courthouse was cold and long. While waiting for Helen's arraignment, I watched from a rough wooden seat while her society pals whispered to each other. They were still in shock that the president of their charitable board was being charged with embezzlement 3 weeks after the break-in. With black circles under his eyes, Ryan emerged at the end of the hallway with concentrating on my phone. His voice was closer than I thought. "Audrey, can we talk?" I said. "The divorce papers are with your lawyer." Without raising my gaze, "Just sign them." He sat next to me too near and said, "That's not mother wants to make a deal now." I gave him a look. "A deal? If you drop the charges, she'll return all of your grandmother's letters." Bitter than coffee grinds. A giggle erupted. "Stole?" So I stood seeking space errors. "She terrorized me in my own home, stole millions from her own charity, and methodically destroyed our marriage," I said, turning heads. "Ryan, those aren't errors, they are options." Ryan was beckoned by Helen's smile, but before he could react, the courthouse doors sprang open, and Evan rushed in with a manila packet in his hand. Breathing heavily, he replied, "I found it in Morton's office." With shaky fingers I opened. "Lawyer, dated 3 years prior to my wedding." "What is that?" Ryan asked. I looked through the contents and said, "Insurance, just in case I ever threatened to take control of you." Helen had orchestrated this whole thing from the start, the harassment, break-ins, everything to make me appear crazy and fixated on the Anderson case. So I looked up as she came in, handcuffed and accompanied by officers. For the first time, I saw genuine fear in Helen's eyes as held up the letter, and said, "Helen, you documented everything. Your lawyer isn't as loyal as you thought. Every stage of your scheme to ruin me. Everyone will now be fully aware of your identity." She rushed forward, but the officer stopped her. "You ungrateful little," she said. "Stop, Mom." Ryan positioned himself between us and said, "Stop. Everything I did was for you, to protect you from her." Helen said, her face crushed from where Ryan's voice broke from emotion from a life. Chloe turned away from her mother, finally realizing the truth she had helped facilitate, and Helen's friends stared in horror as their ideal society matron broke before their eyes. Evan whispered, "The arraignment starting. The district attorney had been quietly waiting nearby, so I gave him the letter before too. Shouldn't hurt like this, Audrey, please." Goodbye, Ryan. As Helen was escorted into the courtroom, I turned to leave, her well-planned world crumbling in my wake. My grandmother's former legal partner texted me saying, "I found something in the archives. Your grandmother would be proud." My phone rang. The autumn air outside was crisp and clean, and Evan caught up to me at the bottom of the courthouse steps. "You all right?" he asked as the wind drove the leaves away. Replied, "No, but I will, because sometimes defeating your opponents isn't the only way to win. Sometimes refusing to let them ruin you is the key. And sometimes the best form of retaliation is to walk away with your head held high and let them deal with the fallout from their own decisions." Reputation was shattered like a DRO teacup, and the society pages were already humming with SCCLE when Evan texted me about her sentencing, 5 years for embezzlement. Ryan was standing in the hallway with a familiar leather-bound bundle, and I froze when I heard a knock at the door. I recognized the pattern: 3 rapid taps, 1 slow. I said, "Grandmother's letters." With a constricted throat he held them out as a peace gift and explained, "I found them in." Traced the tattered edges with my fingers. "How is she?" he shrugged, saying, "Angry, bitter. She's in therapy. She claims to be beginning to understand certain aspects of our family, along with you gaining the ability to stand alone." A painting and easel stood by the window, the canvas half covered in bold strokes of red and gold, something I discovered by mistake, a way to pour forth all words couldn't describe. He looked beyond me into the flat. "Simply it helps," I said. You should see," he said, pulling out an envelope with the signed divorce papers and other items. It contained a 30-year-old newspaper clipping about a young Helen Miller who was desperately trying to establish her social status before marrying into a wealthy family. Ryan said softly, "She was constantly terrified of losing control, of being shown to be inadequate." Below, a siren screamed where I used to cringe at the sound. Now it served as a reminder that life moves on, changes, and evolves. I told myself I never wanted revenge. In shock at the reality, I just wanted to be free. "I understand you won because of that." He started to walk away but stopped. "The picture, it's stunning." I opened the bundle of letters after he left, and my grandmother's words flowed across the pages describing her strength. Written shortly before her death struck my attention because they are afraid of their own darkness. "Some people will try to dull your light, dear heart. You have more power if you keep shining than if you resist them." Not every story needed a tidy ending, and sometimes victory wasn't in killing or even forgiving your enemies, but in finding who you truly were without them. I grabbed my brush and added blue touches to the canvas. My phone buzzed again, and Evan W. Friendship was enough, and I had my freedom, truth, and work. In my previous life, I would have seen danger in the flickering city lights, but now I see opportunities, patterns, and untold stories. The canvas was waiting, the night was young, and I picked up another brush for the first time in years. I felt free, not because Helen had lost or because I had won, but because I had finally understood the. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please do so and hit the notification bell to remain updated on more stunning real-life stories.